not have to know Lily Allen's personality blueprint from her birth chart after the release of West End Girl. It's actually taken me a while to get ready to do this because I needed to listen to these songs and the way that she cathartically goes through all of the emotions and spills the tea to start to get curious about, this is so Scorpio. Where does her Scorpio sit? What planet does it govern? This is definitely Mars. I need to know the zodiac sign that governs Mars, and I just have to share because it's so intriguing. And this is what I do. I work with you and your personality blueprint. That exact moment of your birth tells you so much about the way that you walk through and manage life. So I don't do it in a way where it's going to bring up any kind of situation. There's no prediction in using birth charts or in using your personality blueprint. But what I do is, as life unfolds, you have traits and you have specific behaviors and specific responses in life that help you navigate anything that you can potentially go through. And to unpack it with Lily Allen's album and the way that she has literally told the story of her relationship, of the betrayal, of the breakup, of how messy it got, the way that it is so raw. And you, like, the first time that you, it definitely happened to me. The first time I listened to the album, I was like hooked, like I was sitting on the couch with my bestie and she was telling me all of these intricate details in order to like just feel better about everything that she had gone through. There's so much vulnerability in this album, and in the coaching that I do, in the self-awareness journeys that I take people through, there's a beautiful process that we work through, which is waves. And when we do waves, it's your willingness to actually see what needs to change, or you're so willful that you get stuck in something and you aren't prepared to let it break or crumble or fall apart. And so many times when we do that, we sacrifice ourselves in that way. And she goes through the story of potentially sacrificing and then coming into this realization of her worthiness, which is incredible. And then we work through what needs to adapt and how you are willing at some point to maybe adapt to a certain degree, and then you have to sift through and you have to feel whether in this adapting that you're doing, are you actually losing yourself in the process. And then V is vulnerability in this process of waves. And some of the songs, when you listen to them for the first time, I love listening for the first time and seeing like what it brings up, and like real vulnerability in that, especially when she speaks through the songs, or when there's this conversation with Madeline and you listen to the vulnerability that's coming out in the spoken part, never mind the lyrics. I mean, it's just absolutely mind-blowingly incredible. And then in this process of waves, E is to evaluate. So you evaluate where you are, and does this still serve me, and is this still working for me? And the thing is that once you evaluate, then S becomes surrender. And in that surrender, when you surrender, you just have to do something different. You can't, it becomes undeniable when you go through a process of waves and allow yourself to move through all of the emotional processes of the wave, to surrender and to admit that this isn't working and you are worthy of more. And she brings that out so incredibly, incredibly in this album. So I spent some time in her birth chart, and I absolutely just want to share with you how I sat with the lyrics and felt the lyrics, and then connected them into her birth chart as I navigated through it for the first time. We don't know her time, so we can't do any placement of the houses. I can't see what her rising sign is, and I don't know what's happening in certain houses, but we absolutely have the zodiac signs that are governing the planets, and I'm going to explain to you how this is just so perfectly aligned. Lily has her sun in Taurus, and that Taurus sun builds consistency and loyalty, and really needs emotional grounding. So that is what she would want, and that is what she would have put into a marriage and into a relationship. And when um, life starts to destabilize for someone who is a Taurus sun, then there's this need to move into reconstruction mode, because foundation and security is so important. So her album literally reflects like this instinct that she needed to rebuild her inner foundation by actually going to the absolute truth, and by being so honest and building her own grounding and her own footing, so that she could carry on from that steadiness, so that she had a grounded tone where she showed her strength and everything that she got out of the process, but not without showing that there was instability first, which is so amazing, because as a Taurus sun, you don't want to hide that there were a whole lot of instabilities in order for you to learn to anchor into the stability. And something that is so important about Taurus, especially because Taurus is governed by the second house of values, is that she's literally speaking about how she learned to value herself through the process, and how as as all of this deception and as all of this, like, literally sabotaging her esteem along the way, she needed to rebuild. And this rebuilding is literally the backbone of the reason why she created the album. So incredible. And she has the moon in Libra. So the moon is how you emotionally evolve, and how you work through all of your emotions. So it's what you do to establish emotional well-being, and it's also linked to intuition. And with her moon in Libra, what can happen with moon in Libra is that it's more important in the beginning to keep the peace and keep the balance, and not destabilize any kind of relationship, because Libra governs every type of relationship that you can have. So in the beginning, when you listen to the start of the album with West End Girl, you can hear that she's saying, okay, if that's what you want, that's fine. I'll go along with it. I'll keep the peace. I'll let it feel like it's fair. I will allow this to unfold for a while. But then what eventually happens with Libra, especially with Libra moon, is that your emotional peace becomes the most important thing to you, and inner peace becomes really, really important. So in her song, like for example, Half of Me, and Libra is that scale, so literally for it to be half of me, she she outlines exactly what happened, so that she can talk about the balance and the shift and what she did to restore herself, which is always so important for Libra. Libra literally brings this awareness that comes like to almost like emotional logic behind a breakup, but it always starts with this allowing in the beginning. And at some point the allowing just stops, which is just amazing. She This is what I wanted to know. I wanted to know where her Scorpio was. The reason why Scorpio is so important, especially in songs like this where it is so raw, because Scorpio doesn't only like dig deep. Scorpio is so happy to dig deep, and Scorpio is also governed by Pluto. So Scorpio wants the transformation, and sometimes that transformation can be messy in the process, and you have to dig deep in order to get into the depth of Scorpio. And it's really important to remember that a lot of times in astrology, everyone just focuses on the sun sign, and we're not just one sign. We are all 12 of the zodiac signs. Every single one of them is creating your personality and your behaviors and your responses in life. So, how is Scorpio in her personality bringing up these responses? Because Scorpio is saying, I am willing to dig deep. I'm willing to look at the messy. I'm willing to look at the dark. And then also, in order for me to transform and to change, which is that Pluto energy, I'm willing to make anybody around me uncomfortable. Her ex must be really uncomfortable with this album. And there were some songs, for example, Pussy Palace. When you initially hear that, it makes us all kind of like initially go, "Wow, it was so bold to write a song like that." And that's exactly what Scorpio does. And she has two really important planets that are governed by Scorpio. She has Pluto, and Pluto governs Scorpio, which is incredible. And she also has Saturn in Scorpio, and Saturn is the taskmaster of boundaries, which is incredible. So Pluto in Scorpio, this is this is where lies just come to the surface, where there is full emotional exposure. You cannot hide anything when you have Pluto in Scorpio. This placement absolutely seeks truth. Even if it's uncomfortable, both Pluto and Scorpio do not care how uncomfortable it is. So she writes literally, and she reflects that drive to tell the truth and to like transform herself, which is exactly what Pluto does. Pluto is about death and rebirth, the death of the relationship, and then this rebirth into herself. And there is such like emotional excavation in order for her to just tell this truth and not care um, who hears this truth and what it does to anybody else, because the truth is cathartic to her. She literally names she literally names names, and she names the intensity. She doesn't hide anything, and Pluto really teaches this transformation through like absolute honest confrontation. You can see that she wrote this album as a way of transforming and rebirthing herself, literally where Pluto in Scorpio sits. And then Saturn in Scorpio. This Saturn is the most interesting planet because you can't get away the from the growth that Saturn demands of you. It is the taskmaster of time, and it's the taskmaster of responsibility and of boundaries, and it makes you take responsibility for all of the choices that you have made, go like in the past going forward. So, in having Scorpio in Saturn, there's so much emotional depth that you have to get in, because Saturn in Scorpio makes sure that you cannot not be confronted by the boundaries that you crossed. You cannot hide away from where you crossed the line. You cannot hide away from the places where you did not respect and honor not only yourself but somebody else. So in all of these places where she is calling David out, you can actually feel it. You can feel that she's literally saying, you crossed the boundary, you crossed the line, you broke promises. And then Saturn in Scorpio like has this determination to rebuild yourself, and she's literally rebuilt herself and put boundaries in place by telling such incredible hard truths. Then I also had to know where Aries is, because Aries is this place where the fire literally kicks in at some point with Aries, and there is an absolute determination to break free from anything that doesn't let you stand in the truth of who I am. So Aries is the start of the zodiac. And when we have a look at how the zodiac was brought to life through the seasons, it is literally the place where the sun starts to rise to take its place into the seasons and to bring spring in. So there's this birth that happens with Aries. So you can see a determination to birth. And it's also governed by Mars. So this is where there's any kind of passion and revenge can also sit here. So I was like, what is she doing with Aries that is going to say, this is who I am? I stand up confidently in who I am. But also, you can hear that in such an incredible way, she has woven in what I feel is a form of revenge. And she has Mercury, literally the planet of communication, and Venus, the planet of how you love and care and how you expect or or should be loved and cared for in Aries. So her Mercury in Aries, this communication, it is there is such a directness, and Aries is straightforward. It just absolutely charges in and says exactly what needs to be said. So it is she is so confident in what she is saying that, and there is also, she wrote this entire album in 10 days. That is Aries charging in. It's just like taking the words, knowing what needs to be done with them. She hasn't softened anything. She's just charged in. She has, it is completely uncensored. This Mercury voice is uncensored. It is a confident tone. And Aries also, it has this assertiveness which she is just bringing out into every single word that is spoken in the song. To write an album in 10 days that every single word is so meticulous and tells the perfect story so that she is absolutely cathartic at the end of it is incredible. And then with Venus in Aries, there's Venus talks about how you love. So there's this love that happens with instinct, and also because it's Aries, there is an innocence to it. There's like a diving into it. So she also wants to everyone to know that she was so genuine and she was so authentic and she was so innocent, and she really, really believed in this relationship wholeheartedly and passionately, and she let herself go in. And then she captures these like moments where she starts to recognize herself again, because Aries, because it is the start, the first house in the zodiac wheel, it literally asks the question, who am I? So as you start to connect into any kind of realization about yourself, you become more and more assertive, so that you are eventually saying, I am, this is who I am, I know who I am. And that song, the song Never Again, it literally carries that forward, and then you just start to hear that confidence come out. So Venus in Aries for Lily, it has taught her, it has helped her. That's the best way to put it. It has helped her to not lose that self honoring through this whole process. Incredible. And then we have an asteroid called Chiron, and Chiron shows us this our lifelong wound. So it's the wound that we talk about that gets repeated, and sometimes you'll just think to yourself, why does this have to come up again, and what do I need to learn again? And every time you learn, you actually grow a little bit from that. So I wanted to see what repeated wound comes up for Lily. It's not the first time that she's been married. She has always been really honest in her music, but this is a whole new level of honesty. She's also a mom in doing all of this writing and going through all of this. So I really wanted to see the wound. And when planets are conjunct, or when two cosmic bodies are conjunct, it means that they are next to each other. So they lean on each other. They literally lean on each other. And she has Mars and Chiron conjunct in Gemini, and Gemini is this, it is the speaker, it is the voice, it is the social energy. So to put all of these words out there was literally healing for her. And Mars, as I spoke about Mars with Aries, Mars has this determination, and it can go from these extremes of like absolute passion, and then it can just, this is where, if you're going to have revenge, this Mars energy is absolutely just going to bring it up. To have Mars and Chiron in Gemini, it literally means that the expression, every single word that was written with so much passion, is cathartic and healing. That's exactly what it means. And when planets are conjunct, they support each other. So to actually work through the pain by passionately writing every single word in this album, her entire album, it literally reflects the healing journey and the healing process that is Chiron. Like Strawberry Moon and Crystalline, it absolutely shows how she sorted through all of her emotions, and that every single word, every single layer, every single insight that she had literally healed her through the process. And to write it in 10 days, Mars in Gemini, again, it's to write it in 10 days. And to have so much resolution. I have also watched so many interviews post her putting this album out, and there's just this you can see the growth, and you can see that she had to rebuild her confidence before she could actually stand in the public eye again, and she is standing there so authentically. And this is why a blueprint is so important. Astrology, when you work in astrology, it is not meant to tell you what is happening in your life. It is meant to show you the tools and the resources that you have in your actions, in your behaviors, in your instincts, in your traits, that will help you navigate anything that happens in life. And if I have ever had an example of how perfectly it works, it is Lily Allen with this new album. So please, if you enjoyed this, and if you know anyone who is a fan or is interested in astrology, please feel free to send this along to them. If you aren't following me, then follow along, because I am absolutely loving this and sharing this with you. And I know that next year we're going to have so much more that's going to happen, and all the years to come. And if you would like just a sample without having to commit to anything, then with the greatest of pleasure, I'm going to put the link below. You can have an instant insight with me. It's half an hour. You bring your birth date. You can ask me any question that you want, and I will pinpoint it in your personality blueprint. And then if you want to join, I have a community where I'm just consistently supporting, answering, guiding. I'm talking everything astrology, numerology, tarot, metaphysics, and it's always personalized to you along the way. I'm also going to put that link in. And then I do the self-awareness coaching. I do the soulful exploration teaching in any way, shape, or form. My purpose, my entire purposefulness, is to help you become self-aware so that you can literally be as confident and as worthy, live within your values, create the life that you know you are just so deserving of. That's what I'm here for. At any point in time, you can give me a shout. And now I am off to re-listen to this incredible album.